Welcome to the Mind Body Business Show. The 3 keys to your success is just moments away. Here's your host, Brian Kelly.
Welcome to the Mind Body Business Show. I am so excited. You have no idea. We have an amazing expert guest coming on tonight. Some of you already know who that is, that you have been following our messages. Mind Body Business Show. Let's jump right into it. What is that all about? Well, I found in my years on this planet that when it comes to becoming successful, whether it's in personal relationships or in business, that there are 3 keys to that success. That being, you probably guessed it, mind, body, and business. And along those lines, what I've done is compiled a list of experts, one of which you will meet in depth tonight, to discuss what has made them successful, what has helped catapult them to their success, whether it be on their personal life or their business life. Oftentimes, it's both. And one of the things that got me down this path was the advent of reading. I kid you not. Interestingly enough, I had been told by many entrepreneurs, several mentors over the course of, going back about a decade, how important that reading was to their success. And I just remember I kept going like this and folding my arms and saying, I don't want to read. That takes too much time. And finally, a couple of years ago, I became a voracious reader. And I have to tell you, they were absolutely correct. And, how much does it cost to read? How much does it cost to get a book? They have libraries still. I found out that that's still true. You can go to a library and check out a book for no cost. And so this amazing resource stands in front of you. So I came up with a little segment that highlights certain particular parts of books that I myself have personally read. And what I'd like to do is share one of those with you right now. And that is something I call bookmarks.
Bookmarks. Born to read. Bookmarks. Ready, steady, read. Bookmarks. Brought to you by reachyourpeaklibrary.com.
Yes, reachyourpeaklibrary.com. This is a game changer for those of you that are out there. Reachyourpeaklibrary.com that are watching this. That if you're listening to this on the podcast later during the recording, definitely go to this website and check it out. And the reason is because this is my personal library, books that I have personally read and vetted that had made profound shifts in my success in my life. And part of it is the statement you see on the screen right there. And for those of you that are listening, it says the number one reason for lack of success is not simply a lack of reading books. It's the lack of reading the right books. How true is that? Similar as what if you're watching TV and you're watching sitcoms or the news of all things, rather than maybe something that could spur you farther and forward by maybe watching a documentary on Netflix. Same thing holds true with books. What are you spending your time doing to promote yourself, to push yourself, to get yourself moving and motivated and go forward in life, and using things that are tried and true? And what you'll see on this site, reachyourpeaklibrary.com, is a compilation of approximately 40 books. It's growing. I'm currently reading another one. Always have a book that I'm reading. I personally like Audible, which is a way for me to listen to books rather than have to open a physical book and read them. That way I can listen to them every time I get in the car. Think about the time you're in the car. How much time, I wouldn't say is wasted, but is lost to personal growth or to business growth when we're not using it to the best of our ability. We have so much wonderful technology out there. So I've read through so many books using Audible that I was able to compile this list and then present to you these wonderful tidbits and nuggets. And what I'm going to do is pull up a book right now. And the cool thing about this book is it happens to be a personal favorite of someone you're about to meet. And the guy has got a little bit of an accent. It may be a little difficult to follow, but we'll actually expand on a little bit. So what I want to do is bring up Think and Grow Rich. And I've got it bookmarked to a specific spot, and we'll listen to it for a little while. And then after that, we'll bring on our expert guests. So go ahead, take a listen.
Any idea, plan, or purpose may be placed in the mind through repetition of thought. This is why you are asked to write out a statement of your major purpose or definite chief aim, commit it to memory, and repeat it in audible words day after day until these vibrations of sound have reached your subconscious mind. We are what we are because of the vibrations of thought which we pick up and register through the stimuli of our daily environment. Resolve to throw off the influences of any unfortunate environment and to build your own life to order. Taking inventory of mental assets and liabilities, you will discover that your greatest weakness is lack of self-confidence. This handicap can be surmounted and timidity translated into courage through the aid of the principle of autosuggestion. The application of this principle may be made through a simple arrangement of positive thought impulses stated in writing, memorized and repeated, until they become a part of the working equipment of the subconscious faculty of your mind.
My goodness, how much unbelievable, wonderful content was in that short span. I don't even know how long that was. That was 1 minute and 2 seconds long. Unbelievable amount of information, and unbelievable, valuable information, all about the repetition of thought. Did you notice at the very end he talked about the subconscious? A very important concept. We're not going to dive really deep into that right now. That is just one snippet of a book that so many that have read it and implemented what they've read. That's the key. The key is not just to read it, but to then put into action what you read, that have seen wild success and improvement in their lives. And with that, I want to segue into what all of you are here to see, and that is my guest expert. So without further ado, let's begin the process of bringing this amazing gentleman to the forefront.
It's time for the Guest Expert Spotlight. Savvy, skillful, professional, adept, trained, big league, qualified.
And there he is right there. You see him. Dave Szyminski, the man, the myth, the legend. Some call him Super Dave. I think it's fitting. Dave began his career as a recreation and parks leader and supervisor. Interesting, Dave, because I did the same thing in the same field. That's awesome. He worked in 2 different cities over 10 years apiece. So doing the math, I'd say that's around 20 years. And then transitioned into being an ice cream franchisee. He owned and operated 4 stores, 4 of them, in 4 different cities in Southern California. He has also produced Equity Waiver Theater, 2 feature films, and a TV show for 10 years. Busy, busy guy. He also managed rock and roll bands and serves on the board of directors for a nonprofit music and kids program. He loves to get back. That's something I love about him. He also hosted a national radio show. He has been an entrepreneur for half of his career and now mentors other businesses and serves as a life coach. That's Dave to the core, the essence. He loves helping other people. Yes, you. He's an amazing guy. Before I formally hand the microphone over, really important for you watching live, for those of you that are watching live, be sure to watch it to the end for a chance to win a complimentary stay at a 5-star luxury resort in Mexico. Compliments of powertexting.com. Powertexting.com. So stay on to the end for that. All right. Now that we've got the bookkeeping done, ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause. I can talk. I can do it in English too. For Dave Szyminski. How you doing, Super Dave?
Wow, is he here tonight? Oh, that's me. Thank you so much, Brian. That's a wonderful introduction. I didn't know. I forgot that I did all those things.
I love it. Yes, that's the thing with Dave. He has a wide and varied and storied career in many different avenues and venues, and that helps him to have this broad base of experience to then take that knowledge and help others. That's what he's doing now. That's his vision. Kim Chi, Ben Gay III, thanks for coming on. Thanks for the loves and likes and the applause and all that. I appreciate that. So is it okay if we just jump right into this, Dave? Are you ready, buddy?
I am ready. Just go anywhere you want, Brian.
You got it. So I have an inkling I know the answer to this question, but you might surprise us. What business-related book has inspired you the most? Or maybe what is your favorite book?
Well, it's not only one of my favorite books, it's how I can trace back to the early days of my idea about being an entrepreneur, because I grew up next to an entrepreneur. He was a young guy that was older than me, and so we didn't really socialize, but he lived right next door, and I'm always watching him. He's building cars, and he's creating things. He's doing things in his garage and in the backyard, and but I didn't really get to know him. In fact, I worked for his dad mowing lawns, but I didn't know him so well until he comes over to me one day. His name was Bill Nicholson. And Bill comes over. Now I'm 18 years old, and he's in his 20s somewhere, and he's already been out in the world. And for some reason, he gives me that book, Brian, Think and Grow Rich. And I'm wondering, why is he doing that? I'm a jock. I was playing, basketball and sports and everything. That's all he saw me doing. And I wasn't a big reader. And he's given me a book on sort of business and philosophy of success. And I read it, Brian. I read the book, and it impressed me. It's something that I would have never picked off a shelf myself, but somehow he saw something in me, some potential in me. And when I read that book, and when I understood its concepts, it was emblazoned on my mind. Yet, it wasn't 30 years until I really put it into play. And this is a book by Napoleon Hill, who has, of course, got the whole system and the philosophy of this book from the great turn of the century industrialist Andrew Carnegie. But it's a formula that works not just, and the title is a little misleading. It's not just how to grow rich. It's how to be successful, how to achieve something that you want. So that book stayed with me, Brian, and the concepts in that were so powerful. And I ended up working with this with Bill, who lived next to me, and we did some many things together, and I learned a lot. And the whole thing about being an entrepreneur fascinated me. But once again, my focus early in my career was the sports aspect of it, although I did go to school and got my degree in art. So go figure that out.
30 years. I love that part of the story, particularly because think about that. You read a book, it had an impact on you, and whether you knew it or not, you knew it was working away on you that whole 30 years, the ideas and the concepts, maybe not outwardly, but maybe subconsciously. And look what happened as a result of your investment. You know, I call it like planting the seed. You planted a seed by reading that book, and it kept getting water, and you kept nurturing it, gave it some sunlight of 30 years' time, and now it's blossomed into this beautiful, glorious plant, this beautiful person now called Dave Semensky, who's now out changing lives for the better. And just for the people watching, I have to give you a little bit more props, because one of the things I love about Dave, and I know him personally, we've been to events together, is when this man walks into the room, it electrifies the place. I kid you not. This guy has so much energy. By the way, Dave, if you don't mind my asking, how old are you right now?
Well, my partner and I were the same age in the ice cream business, and he wouldn't let me say our age because he was self-conscious about it. So all I'd say is, well, Babe Ruth and Orville Wright were alive when we were born. Go to your book. But on July 28th, will turn 71 years old.
Wow. So you don't, number one, I know him, I've seen him in face-to-face. He doesn't look it. Number two, he doesn't act it. He's not just saying, well, I'm at retirement age, I'm going to roll over, I'm going to get into my cot, I'm going to go play golf 5 days a week and just do nothing. Dave wants to change lives. He's here with a mission, with a purpose. And it shows. Anytime you talk to him, anytime you meet him, the energy level, he's got this booming voice. When you're in a room together, Dave's in the room, and it's a good thing. You're also a very tall man. You're like, what are you, 6'5", 6'7"?
I'm 6'6", or at least I was exactly 6'6" growing up, but I've broken my back twice in the last 10 years, and my vertebrae used to be that size, and now it's been mushed.
Wow.
I think I'm about 6'5.5" now.
So maybe not quite as large in stature, but much larger in what you do to help other people. And that's the thing. Dave and I were talking off camera, what was it, a week ago or so, and we were talking about the concept of age. And one of the things that we have done in our culture, in the American culture, is basically downgrade anyone who's getting up there in age, that they're getting up there in age. And the interesting thing is the very opposite should be the truth. And the reason is because anyone that's been on this planet for any number of years, every year that they're on it, they're gaining more life experience. They're gaining more, they're learning more from their own mistakes. They know the mistakes not to make. And from those, should they choose to take a path like Dave has, from those they can help those that have not yet been on this planet that long. So in my personal opinion, the older an individual gets, the more valuable they become to the community and to others, especially if they put that experience into play and help others like Dave has done. So I commend you, Dave, and I thank you for people like you that just gives me inspiration to do the same.
Well, you know, if you look at this logo of yours here, the Reach Your Peak logo, I think that's really a great graphic depiction of what the stature I've reached at this age. I can retire now. I don't really have to work. But if I did, Brian, I am at the peak, and there's the peak right there. I am the peak of my knowledge of business and people. Why give up all that I've learned now? I'm not like a shortstop that's washed up at 35, you know?
That's right. That's the beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur. If you're not, a physical athlete, is you don't have to worry about operating at that level physically forever. That's a beautiful thing. And that's, guess what? How many of those elite athletes then go straight into entrepreneurship right after? It's beautiful, beautiful. And on that note with athletes, this is something I want to ask you because, again, this is the mind-body business show. So when it comes to the body, for you, Dave, how important is physical fitness to you and your business and even to your personal life?
It's always been important. Like I told you, I started off the thing that most excited me on the playgrounds of the schools. I was not kind of into the books, Brian. I was kind of into, lunchtime and recess where we could get out there and play sports. And that's where I first learned to play basketball. But the whole idea of sports is not only great for the body, and that's the beauty of the title of your show, Mind, Body, Business, because they all work together. The whole body is a machine. The mind is one of the parts of the machine as a whole, but the whole body has to work together in unison, and that's part of a person's success. Because if you're not feeling healthy and lack of exercise and being too sedentary can cause that, then your mind is not able to stimulate and focus on what it needs to in the business sense, especially from business. So I've always kept sports and athleticism a part of it, even though I kind of overused my body, Brian. I've kind of broken it down a little bit, but I always say I'm really healthy between these two ears still. But I have had 26 surgeries because of my athletic endeavors. But still, like you said, not many people can recognize that because I still work out every other day. Try to keep myself in best shape as possible, but it really stimulates me when I can get my mind working with my body, and then the success of business just follows just naturally, Brian.
I love hearing this because it seems so true. Really, one cannot exist without the other in a successful environment, and that's why I put this together. It's like a tripod, mind, body, business. You have a tripod with 3 legs holding up a camera, for instance. You kick one of those legs away, what happens to that tripod? It all comes tumbling down. If you only have one leg standing up, then you're really on shaky ground. And we're talking about peak performance. Could you be, to some degree, successful if you didn't master all 3 areas? Sure, of course. But do we want to crush it, or do we just want to dabble in it? And that's what this is all about, is taking the human form and optimizing it to its greatest capacity. And there was a book I'm reading currently. It's called Own the Day, Own Your Life by Aubrey Marcus. Amazing, amazing book. And what you were just saying, it just reminded me of that right on the fly, Dave, was that, when it comes to the mind, they did a study. There was a study performed where they had 2 groups. One group was told to concentrate and imagine that they were flexing their muscles. Say it's your biceps. They were imagining that they were lifting weights, and they were feeling the strain of that weight and getting tired. They weren't moving, but it was all in the mind. And weeks later, when they came back after doing this for weeks, the control group that did nothing saw no difference. The ones that were doing this only in the mind, they had them lift weights, and they were lifting bigger, heavier weights than they were previously. The mind is so powerful. Their mind was the only thing that did that. And, but one without the other, and it's not a good marriage. Like with you, Dave, with all of your surgeries, that is why you are still going to the gym twice or once every other day. That's why, because your mind has kept you in the game. The mind is so powerful. So kudos to you. You haven't just read Think and Grow Rich and all the other things that you've ingested over your life, but you're putting them in place, and this is evidence of it. And so I commend you and congratulate you on that, for being that, that role model for others to follow. So thank you.
That's the key, Brian, is actually putting it into practice.
Yeah.
What you absorb in the mind. And so many people don't do that. On Facebook and other places, you see these great motivational quotes and pictures and stuff. And I look at those and I'm thinking, and I'm looking who's posting, and I'm thinking, do they really practice what that says and what that means? And I do that. I have done that my whole life. And I took that book, Think and Grow Rich, and I used its concepts, and I practiced that. And like you said, even if I didn't do it immediately, I absorbed it, and I believed in it, and it eventually paid off for me. And so everything that you read, everything you're stimulated around, it doesn't do you any good. All that knowledge, all that education that you go through, if it's not put into practice, you're missing the whole point, and you're missing the essence of the message that you're trying to absorb.
Exactly. I've heard it put another way too. There's faith and there's action. You have to have both. You can't just run life on faith and will it and hope it happens. There is something you need to actually do. You have to. If you don't, it's not just going to fall in your lap. Beautiful.
I love the word dreamers. Everybody loves dreamers, but dreamers are really don't have anything substantial if they don't put those dreams to practicality and achieve something. And so the dreams that I've had, the bucket list that I've created, Brian, in my life, I've done a lot of those things. I've actually done the things I dreamed of doing. That's why I've done so many things, because other things that were out there that excited me, I wanted those challenges. Once I mastered one particular area, I was always kind of challenging myself to go on to do something better. And so I did the things I dreamed of doing, not just talked about.
I love it. And there are occasions from stage where we would teach this very concept. It's the folks, the dreamers, those are the ones that are saying, I would love to go and I would love to skydive. Someday I'll do that. Someday I'll do that. Or, I'd love to actually go travel, maybe across Europe, but someday. And then I say to that person, it's like, well, tell me, what day of the week does someday land on? Do you see that written anywhere on the 7 days? So the thing is, someday never happens. And that's the key to that. Hey, Richard W. McClendon Jr. says hello. And he's also saying positive thinking and action. Thank you, Richard, for your comments. For those of you watching on Facebook Live and other of our streaming venues, which there are now 7. We're streaming live on 7 different platforms simultaneously. Go ahead and give us some likes, some love, some comments. Let us know you're out there. I will be monitoring that throughout the show, and we will include you if you are there providing value, asking questions. We're here for you, and don't forget, stay on to the end so you can participate in the big giveaway, which is the vacation to Mexico, a 5-star resort for 5 days. Beautiful, wonderful. All right, Dave, moving on. You must have had organizations over the time of your career. I'm thinking back to probably your ice cream days, your ice cream shops, the 4 of those. And, I know that it can be difficult. It can be a challenge to bring the right people in. If you don't get the right people in to your business, if they don't share your mission, if they don't share your belief system, your mindset, if they don't share your goals, then it could be a struggle. How do you personally find and bring those people into your organization that truly care about the organization the way that you do?
Oh, what a great question, Brian, because that encapsulates what my success was and how it came about. Because my partner and I, we talked about this, about being in business when we were in high school. But like I said, it was 30 years before we actually developed these business. But I was that interim career I had that you mentioned earlier about in recreation. I spent 26 years in 2 cities and basically working with young people. teenagers. That was kind of one of my specialties in recreation. So when we owned this business, I'm thinking to myself, now I've invested everything I have, because these stores don't build themselves, Brian. You know, it takes a little bit of capital, and I put everything I had after I left the municipality of this city governments that I worked for, and I put this all into these business. So I'm thinking, I'm going to be passionate about selling ice cream, and I got to have my employees as passionate as I am. And how am I going to do that? How will I get the same sort of feeling, the same excitement out of this? Because this is my livelihood. This is going to be it now. So what I thought was, if I'm not excited about ice cream, then how are they going to be? And so I remember the first time I entered my store after we'd opened it up and we were open for a few days. I'm thinking, what can I do immediately to kind of pump them up? And I thought, you know, if I yell, it's a great day for ice cream when I walk in the door, they're going to know I'm ready. They should be ready. Let's sell some ice cream. Let's have some fun today. And that's what I did, Brian. Every day I walked in our store, I yelled, and I scared my employees sometimes. They'd be making waffle cones with their back to the front door, and I was screaming like that, and they would just go like this. But they knew I was here, and I knew that we were going to have fun, and we were going to make money together. And so I told this story years into my tenure at Cold Stone Creamery in Arizona. There was a business meeting, and the CEO of Cold Stone Creamery was there, and he goes, Dave, would you tell that story to some of my management team and some of the owners here? Because I think that's a great way to bring enthusiasm into your store. And so I did that, and they heard that phrase, and we actually ended up answering our phone that way. Cold Stone Creamery, it's a great day for ice cream. We'd say that, and when the culture of Cold Stone heard about that, and I told that at one of our annual franchise meetings, it kind of swept across the country, and eventually every store in America, Brian, would answer their phone that way. It's a great day for ice cream. But now my next task was to hire people like that, not just try to inspire the ones that were there. I wanted to make sure that we brought those kind of people into our store. So the idea occurred to me that I can't just sit down and interview kids, because when you sit a teenager in front of 2 or 3 management people, you know, they're talking, they're asking these tough questions, do you think that kid is really acting their natural self? No, they're nervous, they're sweating, and there's not a question, Brian, you tell me one that can answer, how honest are they? How hardworking are they? How dedicated are they? How prompt are they? You can't find those things out, but you can find out if they have a personality if you can make them relax. So what I did, and it was kind of a surprise to my partner and my manager of my first store in Glendale, when I said, look, because we started getting the applications piled up like this high, and we realized if we were going to interview the kids to hire more people, it was going to take days to go through these interviews, because every interview takes a half hour to 45 minutes if you do it right. So I said, don't worry about it. The Chamber of Commerce allowed me to use their room, and I said, we're going to invite them all at the same time. And my partner goes, what? Howard Davidson was my partner at the time, and Howie just says, couldn't believe it. My manager was Mike Briggs, and he didn't know what I was up to. But when I got them in the room, Brian, I told them they were going to have to be there for 2 hours. It was going to be a 2-hour interview. And what I did was I went around the room interviewing each of the kids and just asked it a few questions. But I go to the other side of the room and I go to this side, and they wouldn't know which way I was coming. So I wanted to get them kind of surprise answers, and I switched the questions up. I wanted to kind of get a little energy in the room. And after I talked to everybody in the room, I said to them, okay, let's loosen it up even some more here. By that time, I knew the personalities of most of the kids, kind of generally. I knew who was uninhibited and who was a little bit shyer. And I picked one of the uninhibited ones, and I said, I'd like you to bust the move. And they looked at me like, what do you mean? I said, well, I want you to give me 3 seconds, and there's got to be some movement. You don't have to say anything, but these 3 seconds got to be the best 3 seconds today. Maybe the best 3 seconds this week. I want to see the essence of you in 3 seconds with some movement. I want to see some energy. How much do you want to work here? And the first kid did something crazy. And then I get another one across the room, and they would try to top that one. And pretty soon I got everybody to do this bust the move thing, and they thought it was, and by the end of that, the room was electric, Brian. It was absolutely electric. We sat down again, and I created these tip songs that we're going to sing, you know, when we get a tip in the jar. And I said, I know you can't sing. I'm not a singer, but I want to see, how would you sing this tip song to a customer that just put $1 or $2 in your tip jar? And we'd go around the room doing that, and then I would break them into groups eventually, and I'd have a little production that they would have to organize in 10 minutes. And I'd ask my partner and my staff and my manager to look at them. I said, don't worry about, you know, what they're doing, but look who the mover and shakers are in those little groups. And then we do these productions on there, and then we break into a couple of more interviews. And at the end of about an hour and 45, hour and 50 minutes, I say, okay, now take a look at who's in the room. We got a few of our staff here. I got my partner here. Do you have any questions, or is there something we didn't bring out? By the end of 2 hours, Brian, these kids, these teenagers were themselves. They were loose, they were relaxed. They realized this wasn't a traditional interview. And at the end of that process, Brian, when we sat down with my manager, my partner, maybe a couple of staff members and myself, if there was 20 people or 25 people in that room, Brian, we would come up with the same 2 or 3 names of the ones that had the best personality. We could teach them all the other stuff, but we couldn't give them a personality. And when you take personalities and add to your staff, position by position, personality, passion, excitement, it brings up the whole level of your organization. And when we opened our store in Glendale in 1998, there was less than 50 stores open for Cold Stone Creamery across the country. Most of them are in Arizona. And the model for their store, they averaged about $230,000 a year in gross ice cream sales. When our store in Glendale went over $500,000, they go, what are those guys doing over there? And they found out about my audition, and ultimately they took a videotape of what I did. They sent it to every new franchise that was open. Cold Stone Creamery eventually got to nearly 2,000 stores. We were one of the first 50, remember? So I was called the father of the audition. The Wall Street Journal called me up to be interviewed. The LA Business Journal had an article about me. USA Today had a big 2-page spread where I was named there as the father of the audition. And that taught me, Brian, that all my experience with young people and bringing that passion to the business world was the formula for success.
Wow, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Those of you watching this live, listening to the podcast, that is it. The formula for success. Man, I was writing notes like you won't believe. So many amazing things. I love that story. I actually went to a Cold Stone years ago with my family, and it was down in Long Beach, I believe. And I remember that song. That what happened was, and they do greet us. They did greet us. And you probably had never stepped foot in that particular one, so that's your legacy living there. And the other thing I remember when you brought it up, it reminded me that someone in front of us left a tip, and I noticed they broke into song, and I thought, this is genius. I want a song, so I'm going to put a tip in there.
Exactly.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I was like, this is. Who thinks that way? This is phenomenal. And people, you know, the second you step in there, that is why you did the 500,000 versus 200, because word of mouth had to have spread to say, you're going to love this place. It's a lot of fun. It's like, ice cream's already fun, but every ice cream store we've been to before that, it's like, how you doing? What do you want? What's your flavor? You know, there's nothing going to it. So much. You're an out-of-the-box thinker. You use your passion. That's a big word to use for successful entrepreneurs. Used your past experience very well by integrating what you had learned and how to interact with the youth, and just getting them. You hit the nail on the head. It's not about their skill set, because like you said, they can be taught that and they can learn that. It's what is in here. What is going on in here? What's the personality? And what you're talking about, what we teach from stage, is value alignment. they were in alignment with your value system because they wanted to play. They wanted to play with you. And they wanted to present that beautiful, boisterous, passionate personality that you pulled out of those that had that in them. That's just genius.
And that entrepreneur mindset, Brian, goes up the ladder because I remember the management company that put the whole development together in Glendale was Regent Properties, and Doug Brown was the CEO there. And he wrote us a little note after we were open about 6 months, and he said, "Dave and Howie, you're our favorite tenant." And the reason was, Brian, these developers of these big places, they have egos like you can't believe it. And when they bring their buddies around to see their development, they don't show them the Bed Bath & Beyond store or the restaurant. They show that little ice cream store that's got singing and energy behind the counter and lines out the door. I mean, that's what makes them proud about their position in the business community. And that sort of thing just caught on really fast. And people knew about us. Like you said, they heard about the singing and all the energy in Cold Stone Creamery. And unfortunately, as the years went by and I got out of the system, they lost that fervor that they had then. And they've gone to under 1,000 stores. They were bought out by a corporation that buys out stressed out franchises. And if you don't keep up that successful formula, you can go the other direction just as easily, Brian.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they had the model for success. All you have to do, this is for everyone listening, is follow that model for success. And that's the thing, I remember searching for a better part of my life for that golden recipe that is out there, that recipe for success, thinking that there was one and only one. And it had to be the one, and it had to be, I would know it, and it would be perfect. And I since learned that there are many, many recipes for success. And literally all you need to do is find one that's in alignment with your value system and then grab onto it and don't let go and stick with it and model that person or that organization. In my case, it was a person, that you model that person, you do what they do. And it's funny, it's just like a recipe in a cookbook, right? How do you cook a cake? How do you bake a cake? See, I'm not a baker, obviously. But you have certain ingredients, certain amounts of each ingredient, put them in the oven for a certain amount of time, add water, whatever. And when you pull it out, it's gonna look pretty darn close to the picture you saw in the recipe book. And if you did everything right, you followed the recipe, it's gonna taste pretty darn good too. And it's the same thing with life, with entrepreneurship. I was talking about this just the other week on this show. Basically, as we were kids, Dave, what happened if it probably wasn't you, but what if a classmate in school, in elementary school, you were taking a test and that classmate got caught doing this and looking at the desk next to him, and the teacher caught that? What would happen to that student?
Well, when I went to school, the nun would have hit me in the back of the head with a ruler.
Wow, back of the head. That's even worse. For me, it was a ruler on the hand.
Those nuns were tough on those little Catholic boys.
Well,
these were not teachers per se, Brian, because you couldn't see their hair. These black habits and a white thing up at top here, and their little faces stuck out, and you never saw them on the street during. They came from, I don't know, out of the Ethernet into your classroom to teach you. So they had an aura about them, a mysterious part.
I love it.
Did not mess with the nuns, and they taught me well. It was a great experience.
But the thing is, if you were caught cheating, you were admonished for it in one way or another. Today, I'm sure they don't touch kids anymore. I mean, when I went through school, they still did the rulers, but it wasn't on the back of the head. It was on the back of the hand, the flat part, at least, too. But the point there was we're brought up to think that cheating is wrong, and it is wrong. Cheating is different than modeling. But what it really is copying. And so we had this negative anchor set in us all as youth that copying is wrong and you shouldn't do it. And as we become adults and we're trying to become successful in business, it turns out it's the very thing we must do to become successful is model those who are willing to mentor us and share what they're doing, like you are doing with so many, Dave. And so that's the thing. It's I want to give everyone out there permission to copy. You have my permission. You can tell them Brian said it was okay. I'm okay with that. You can model success. Model Dave. Model Dave. Find out, what makes him tick. Contact him. Connect him if he's open to that. Connect with him and say, hey, man, I would really love to learn how you became so successful. I'd like to model how you did that. That's the way Dave is wired. He'll do that. And by the way, do it with respect. Don't go up to Dave and say, just help me, give me something, gimme. Offer something in return. Find out. Maybe Dave maybe he's connected to an organization, a charitable organization, and offer to help out with that. Or maybe Dave just needs something in his daily routine that you could help him out with. But offer to help. Don't just ask for stuff. Don't just say, gimme. Offer something of value to him first. That way, he'll be more apt to then say, okay, yeah, great. He might ask you to bust a move right there. And if he does, you better do it, because then he may not help you, right? I love it. All right. This is a question. It's a deep one. And there is no one answer to it. And with that, I don't think there's a right answer. I don't think there's a right answer to it. But I'm really curious to find out from you, Dave, with your experience level, how do you personally define success? How would you word it?
Success is when you're able to do something for a living that you really enjoy doing, that gives you satisfaction and takes advantage of the skills that God has given you. Because if Beethoven never saw a piano, I think the world would be far less off for it. Or if Michelangelo never found a brush or a piece of stone to carve, that kind of genius comes from the mentality that you have of enjoying something and recognizing your own talents and taking the most advantage of them. That's, to me, the definition of success.
Wow. And the thing I love about, so notice, most successful entrepreneurs, when asked that question, it's interesting to me. I find this time and time again. The successful ones, that caveat, is they typically never bring in that word that starts with the letter M. And it's not about money. It was about enjoying what you do. And that's really what it comes down to. And any successful entrepreneur that you meet that has the value system similar to Dave's, that's there to serve others, that's not money-centric, will say the same thing. I was just learning from a gentleman who is pulling in over $20 million a year. And he says it's not the money that drives him. It's serving others. And it's like, this is amazing. I love this. And I love people like him, and I love people like you who have that same mindset. And that's another thing is, how many times have you heard something negative said about someone wealthy? I mean, really. There's this jealousy component. There's this hatred of people who have money. And they think that the people that have money, that are wealthy, that are successful, are just all into themselves and they're not going to help you, and they just want to go about their life, and you're nothing to them. And the thing is, you're looking at one right now, right here. Dave, I'm pointing on the screen to Dave, that would give you the shirt off his back if if you needed it, because he loves helping people. He loves helping people. And most of those that have achieved success that I've met personally are the same way. They're the exact opposite of how they're portrayed on television and media, and from your friends, from your family. They're amazing people, most of them. Yes, there are bad apples. There are always bad apples. But for the lion's share, the big part of them, they are just amazing, serving individuals. Would you agree with that, Dave? Or
oh, yes.
Do you have a different...
you absolutely hit on it, because I do enjoy helping people. And like going back to what I said originally, that's what I've done all my life. You can go back decade after decade after decade and look at my careers. Look at the places I've been, and you can talk to other people. Don't just take my word for it. There's a lot of people out there that have worked for me. And if they don't tell you, hey, Dave had a kick out of what he was doing, I enjoyed whatever I was doing, because that was the premise on which I started. I started with my talent, taking advantage of the talent I have artistically. And so I went to school. Whenever anyone would ask me what I was going to do when I grew up, I was going to be an artist. I mean, everybody knew that. Since I was a little kid, I could draw better than most people. And it was kind of a fait accompli that I was going to be an artist. But what happened was when I graduated with my degree and my portfolio in 1970, there were no jobs out there, Brian. There were no art jobs. So I had just tore up my knee for the first time, and I was looking for a place to rehab it. And this community center was just built that had a weight room. And I said, perfect. I'll go there and work out on my leg and kind of bide my time till I can go out and show my portfolio around. Well, somebody saw me there, recognized me that I had been all Sentinel Valley in basketball at Inglewood High School. And they said, hey, would you like to coach kids in basketball? And I'm thinking, you're going to pay me to coach kids in basketball? You're kidding me. Yeah, I'll do that. And so I had fun. Brian, I coached kids that you would know the names of these kids because they went on to the NBA. Do you think I was having fun doing that?
Oh, yeah.
And then I went from coaching to they put me in charge of this facility, that was 40,000 square feet. It had a basketball gym, a weight room, a sauna bath, a shower, a pool tables, ping pong tables. I mean, art classes. Are you kidding me? And you're going to pay me to be in charge of that? So my business model, starting way back, it's 4 words: think big and have fun. And so that is the form of success. And so every one of my jobs, and that's why you identified there, because helping people is fun to me. I mean, the reward comes without the money, Brian. It's the success that your advice or your inspiration or the passion you share with them that brings about their success. You know how vicariously we are as sports fans on the success of our teams when they win the World Series or the NBA championship or a golf tournament. Well, that happens to me on a regular basis, Brian, when people I help are successful. I don't need to get any money for it. The value and the satisfaction comes from helping people. That's what I enjoy doing. So I've done things I've enjoyed my whole life. I mean, you can't measure it monetarily at all. It's not possible.
I love this. Just watching you, listening to you. For those of you watching on Facebook Live, all of you probably noticed. Especially for those of you that've been on since the beginning, did you just notice the level of Dave's passion just go up about 5 notches when he started talking about helping kids? I mean, the guy. Look at him smiling right now. He's just beaming.
This is so great.
And the thing is, I got the wonderful honor to coach kids in sports too, and I completely get what you're saying. It is so fun. Even Anthony Gary, hey Anthony, my buddy, who is on watching us, he's actually going to be our next guest next week. He said, coaching kids is always fun. He's commenting on Facebook. It is so rewarding to coach kids and watch them blossom in front of your eyes, because
I got to tell you a story, Brian, real quick. I mean, people that know me have heard this story before, but this will focus on just what you said there. The first team I coached was they had you were given players. You didn't get to pick your own players, so it was boys league basketball, 10 and 11-year-old boys, and I was given 10 players that not of my choosing, and I had to build those into a team. So my first practice, I go to the gym. They all 10 show up, and I said, "Here, boys, here's a few basketballs. Shoot around for 10 minutes. I'm going to watch you guys, and then we're going to talk." And the key to this league, Brian, was that they said of these 10 kids, and remember, you can only play 5 at a time. Each kid had to play one half of the game, 2 quarters. So that meant that of the 10 players you had, they were all going to at least have to play half of the game. Okay? So with that in mind, I'm watching these kids shoot, and I see some kids that are pretty good. I had a couple that are really good. One kid that could use either hand at 11 years old, and he was really good. And some kids that weren't so good. And Brian, there was one kid that was so bad, he couldn't reach the basketball, the hoop or the net with a basketball. Not only that, he didn't have any coordination. He's a little kid with no skills whatsoever. But you know what he had, Brian, that I noticed as I'm watching? He's having fun out there. He's running around having a good time, thinking this is probably the first sports league he's ever been in. So I'm thinking to myself, how can I harness this? So I line the boys up against the wall there, right? And I walk up and down like, I'm Mr. Basketball. I go, boys, you guys are in school together. You guys know, players that are good. And some of you know that you're pretty good. Some know that you're really good. Some know that you're not so good. And some of you guys know, and I looked at this kid, Brian. I said, some of you know that you just don't have any talent. But you all have one thing in common: the ability to play defense. And I want you to go crazy on defense. I want you to wave your hands and scream and yell. And I want you to just go up to the guy's face, and I want you to give me everything you got on defense. Can you guys do that? And I looked at this kid, and he was all excited. His eyes are open up. He goes, yeah, I can do that. And so the first game, I put him in the second quarter, right? I'm telling you, Brian, he went crazy because he's running around the court like this, and the guy he's guarding is going, get away from me. What is this? This is a wind-up toy? This is a muskrat, or I don't know what this is. And guess what, Brian? The quarter that he was in the game, the whole level of the defense came up. So I got this idea. This particular league, we had the bleachers up above, and none of the parents or anything were down on the floor. They were all up on the bleachers. So we had a pretty good crowd because 10 and 11-year-old kids, all the parents come out and the relatives and stuff. So we got some pretty good crowds. And they would I saw them getting a kick out of this kid coming to the game. So I would kneel down next to him, Brian, and he came right up to here. And as I'm ready to put him in the game, I look up in the stands, and I do this like I'm winding him up, right? And then I'd look at the crowd and I go, okay, go crazy. And I'd shoot him out on the court. And I'm telling you, this kid would go nuts, and the whole team would raise up, and the crowd would get into it. And the enthusiasm. So as the season went on, we were doing pretty good for a team that wasn't that good. And every time, and the whole defensive atmosphere and attitude of the team was great. So we get to the championship game, right? And there's one kid in the league that, these are 10 and 11-year-olds, Brian. One kid's averaging 30 points a game, and I'm going to be playing against him for the championship. So I got this idea. I said, I'm going to play a box and one, which is 4 guys playing a zone, and then 1 guy chases the ball. Who do you think that kid was? Yep.
Yes.
My little wind-up toy, okay? I sent him after the superstar there. So he's going all over this guy. I'm not here to tell you I'm such a great coach, Brian. Okay, that's not the point of this story. The point is, I learned at an early age with that job that passion made a difference. We won the championship. That guy that averaged 30 points, you might have heard of him. His name is Byron Scott.
Oh, my gosh. I love it.
The good kid on my team, the guy that could shoot either hand, was Jay Humphries. He went on to the NBA too. But this little kid, Paul Splett, this kid, his parents came up to me, Brian, after the last game, and they said this was the greatest experience that he'd ever had. Didn't score a basket the whole year because he couldn't. He couldn't get the ball up to the hoop. But his energy, his passion, brought the level of our team and the defense and the excitement, and that taught me a great deal about the success of passion, excitement, and energy in any line of business, and especially in sports and in team sports. So I just had to tell you that story, Brian.
Thank you for telling us that story. I love that story. I love the closing statement about the passion and the energy, and have that in your business. Because how many people do we run into that seem to go about it listlessly? There's so many, and they just don't feel like they want to get out of bed. They look like they just I don't want to be here. And you just hit the nail on the head, my friend. Your talent is a master motivator. I mean, just talking to you on this show, it's become very clear that it doesn't matter the age either. You have the gift to motivate. Think the way you're thinking out of the box. I mean, there's still defense. I was like, that's genius. It's so simple. It's so genius. You can play defense. And I was like, wow, because everyone's always concentrating on offense, aren't they? Even in business, I love it. I love it.
And it's a great day for ice cream.
And the thing is, I love the fact that, so you got one, so he's like an underdog. You got one kid to really buy in to your system.
I never would have thought about that had I not seen his energy in the court. He taught me something, and I just used that. And the whole Cold Stone Creamery thing came afterwards, and you can see the connections there.
Yeah.
That I've learned from my experience. And that's what I love to do with people in other businesses, is show them how there's little keys to success that, like you said, might just escape the average one. But I don't look at it. I look at a business. When I look at your business, I look at the opportunities that you might not be getting. You might not be doing anything wrong, but you might be missing some opportunities.
Yeah, there's always room for improvement. No one is perfect. I agree completely. And the thing is, you found one person that was an underachiever to most people's eyes, but when you motivated him to become an incredible defender, what happened? That passion, it became infectious to the rest of the team. And all it took was that one. It's just like, I use this story often, like, you've been to seminars, you've been to workshops, right? You've been to convention centers where there's rows of vendor tables, so at breaks during seminars, you can go talk to the vendors, or during conventions, they're always out there, big floor. Well, what if you're walking around and you see this big crowd around one table, and you see a couple tables over, there's 3 people at that one, and there's nobody at any other table. Which table are you most apt to go to?
Where the energy is.
Yeah, where the crowd, exactly. And the same thing holds true here. That's a huge lesson. That's huge, is to find and get one person motivated, and it becomes infectious. That's a big takeaway, literally, for me personally. So thank you for that. That spoke volumes.
Businesses are team sports, Brian.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we're coming up. I can't believe it. This always comes up too soon. At the close of the hour, I do want to ask one more question before we reveal how to get to enter into that contest to get a 5-day vacation in Mexico, all compliments of powertexting.com. I just had to ask this question, Dave. I would feel remiss if I left everyone without it, even though what you just provided us was gold nuggets. I hope everyone, if you didn't catch it, be sure to play this back. Share this, like it, love it, comment on it. Dave, what is your favorite aspect? You've been on both sides of the fence. You've been a corporate employee, and you've also been an entrepreneur. When it comes to being an entrepreneur, what is your favorite aspect of being an entrepreneur?
Without question, it's the autonomy you have. Be able to choose your environment, choose who you work with, choose when you work, how much you give to whatever it is that you're chosen. You don't have that choice when you're working for somebody else. And it doesn't come easily either. There's risk and gambles in it. You don't have the security of a job, but you do have the ability to create your own environment. I always think of, when you talked about early in this interview about this, what do you define as success? I always think it wasn't the fact that Hugh Hefner was so rich eventually. It's that he had a concept. He created something that was perfect for his environment. He didn't have to go to work. He brought the work to him. He ended up working out of his home. The whole Playboy empire was built in his little bachelor pad that he created for himself. So everything was created around his environment. He ultimately had the mansion in California too, but it was ability for him as an entrepreneur to create his own environment, his own work. And that's another key to success, is because if you put 8 to 10 hours a day in something, if it's something you're really excited, it's part of your life, your culture, your being, it's a wonderful experience. I remember when I went back after my years in the city working for the city and recreation, they knew I was doing the ice cream stores. They go, Dave, do you miss the recreation department? I go, well, let me explain something, the difference between an entrepreneur and working for the city. When I worked for the city and I did a good job, you know what they gave me, Brian? More work. Hey, Dave can do this. Well, he can do that too. When I work harder as an entrepreneur, I make more money. I have more fun. That's the difference.
Wow. I love it. Having corporate experience myself, I completely get that. What we would often refer to that is, those in a corporate, and look, I have nothing against people that work in a corporate environment. Neither does Dave. I know that for a fact. And just know that when we make comments like I'm about to make, which is you know, one of the things that I remember most about it, day in and day out, was I felt like I was amongst the walking dead. And the reason is many of the things that Dave just pointed out, the biggest one being there was no choice. You know, if you're given something and you're given no choice, then you are kind of dead inside, aren't you? You have no creativity. You can't blossom. You can't flower. You can't really make an impact beyond what they tell you to do within the confines of their rules and what they tell you to do. Like you said, what, how, where, when. You hit them all as far as you get autonomy as an entrepreneur. And it's so invigorating. Yeah, Richard McClendon is saying very true. He says he talks to you several times a month.
Rich is a magician, Brian, a great magician. And he's in Cleveland, and I'm trying to talk him, come out here to California. We're going to really make you successful, Rich. Come on.
Come on out, Rich.
But it's his
we'll welcome you with open arms.
So it's going to be a big move for him, but I know he's going to be, this is the place to be, and he's going to be something special. You'll hear of Rich McClendon and RW Magic sometime, Brian.
Well, come on out for a week. Give it a good trial run, and I know there's somebody that might be able to help motivate you to stay a little longer. Don't know who that could be. Well, fantastic. Dave, I want to thank you so very much. We're not 100% done with the show, but I just wanted to give you my gratitude for spending this hour with me. For those that aren't familiar with this kind of show, there was some setup and time that Dave also spent with me. We spent probably a couple hours before the show getting prepped in total. And I so appreciate your time, your energy, your experience, your knowledge, your wisdom. And I know that this is going to really have an impact on those that watch it, that experience it. And I just wanted to say that, and I wanted to thank you very much. And I love you, brother. You're like, I know you're a little older than me, but you could still be my older brother, right? We'll put it that way.
Well, I want to thank you for this format, Brian, because I think if people tune in, you can see how you can get different points of view from different entrepreneurs. And this is just the way you structured it. And I loved your prep work, because it shows that you dedicated yourself to this, that you weren't just going to go through the motions of this and just because you had a little technological knowledge, but you really put this together well, and I think it's really beneficial, and I think people are going to reach their peak through you, and mind, body, and business is a great combo, Brian.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I really do. All right, so we're going to jump into what many of you have been waiting for, the prize, the giveaway. So here is how you enter to win a 5-day stay at a 5-star Mexican resort. You can do it in one of two ways. One is go to reachyourpeakllc.com/vacation. Do that on our web browser. Or if it's easier for you, if you're on your phone, just text the word peak, that's P-E-A-K, to the number you see on the screen, 661-535-1624. And we'll pick a winner and announce it. If we see them come in right away, we might announce it before we go off the air, but go ahead and do that. Brian, you're a live VJ. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate all the comments. He said this is a good forum. He's got an ad running on LA Parent Magazine. He's given a website out, rwmagic.com. I will give you a shout out about that, Richard. rwmagic.com. Go check him out. If he's an amazing magician, according to my good friend, Mr. Dave Szymanski, then he's got to be a phenomenal physician. There's just no two ways about it. So go ahead and go to rwmagic.com. But before you do that, be sure to enter to win this prize. As that screen is up, just a moment, I'm going to pull up to see how we're doing with the entries. And so don't forget, reachyourpeakllc.com/vacation, or simply text the word peak to 661-535-1624. Again, this is sponsored by powertexting.com, an amazing feature or service that my good buddy Jason Nast has put together. Would love to see you guys take that for a test drive. It's an amazing platform. And by the way, when you go to either one of those, if you go to reachyourpeakllc.com/vacation, you'll see an opt-in form there. That is actually powertexting.com at work. The same with texting peak to that phone number on the screen. So go ahead and do that. We will announce you will be chosen, and we will send you a text message showing you how to claim your 5-day vacation. And with that, let's get back with Super Dave on the screen. Once again, I want to thank you, Dave, and thank you all for coming on live, and I look forward to seeing the comments of those that come on afterward. Tina Wang, I did see you that give a thumbs up. Thank you so much. So many people watching and listening. We'll see you on you'll hear us on the podcast coming up, and we have this will be recorded and in many platforms for you to witness and reabsorb.
Brian, can I say one more thing?
Yes, you may.
I neglected to mention my role currently as a board member of Music and Kids. And you talked about giving back and the fact that I enjoy what I can give. A man by the name of Chuck Murphy, a local musician here who's been on the Billboard charts, very successful last couple of years, has now decided to give back to the community, starting in the Antelope Valley. With his expertise, he's put together this board. We're giving out scholarships to kids, free full year scholarships to hone their musical skills. And it's a wonderful program, musicandkids.org. And I'm just so proud of what Chuck Murphy and his team, his board has put together, because it's really helping give kids an opportunity to make music a professional lifetime profession. And it's a great organization. I'm just so proud to be a part of it, Brian.
Fantastic. Love it. So there he is. He's promoting others, as usual. And before we go, what's the best way to connect with Super Dave Szymanski? What's your preferred form of connection?
Almost anything. You can reach me on Facebook, if you can spell Szymanski all right. just look me up on Facebook. You can drop me emails. I respond to everybody. So I'm welcoming anybody that it's winzoneduke@gmail.com.
Winzone Duke.
WINZONE, Winzone. That was our corporate name in the ice cream business, and Duke was my nickname. WinzoneDuke@gmail. Give me an email and I'll help you out any way I can.
And then after the show is over, well, while you're watching this as a recording, depending on where you're watching it, you can go to reachyourpeakllc.com and look for podcast on the menu up on the top. And you'll see Dave's show there. You just click that link, and there'll be links there to connect with him on Facebook and to go to his website directly. So lots of ways to connect with him, but just want to make sure to give you the opportunity, Dave, to put the way you would prefer folks to get to you. So fantastic. All right. Well, with that is it. We are done. Love y'all. It's been exciting. We'll see you again next week on the next edition of the Mind Body Business Show. Until then, be successful. Talk to you later.
Thank you for watching and listening. This has been the Mind Body Business Show with Brian Kelly.